Hello there, everybody, and welcome to WhatCulture Wrestling. No, do not adjust your sets. Adam Wilborn hasn't just met a witch in a swamp at midnight and begged to be transformed into a 10. I'm merely filling in for him because he's at another wedding.
Bouncy castle.
Not his this time, is it? But before we begin, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, don't forget to subscribe to WhatCulture on HAS, Spotify, or wherever it is, HAS, you get your podcast from for daily wrestling updates, including Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, discussions, interviews, roundtables, and a roundup of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture, as well as stuff like this. Big talking points, which we're going to discuss now with Andy H. Murray and Michael Sidgwick.
Harry.
And today's topic is... what do you want to see happen in WWE? Nay, what does your very soul need to happen in WWE before 2019 slams shut like the proverbial transfer window? Michael Sidgwick, any thoughts?
Yes. In my extensive note-taking process, I've written down the following. Failure. Mm-hmm. I also like Sami Zayn and Asuka. I'll get to them two later, but seriously, I want NXT to fail.
You want it to fail?
Oh, man. Yeah. Quite handily at the hands of AEW, because the response so far to this imminent competition I've found like really ugly and entirely uncreative, the opposite of creative. I thought they were going to finally, well, I didn't, but lots of people did, thought they were going to finally flex this atrophied, dormant creative muscle and think, you know what, we're the best and biggest, so let's pretty well prove it to this nickel and dime upstart operation. Hasn't happened whatsoever. They've panicked. They've been spiteful. I know they've hired Paul Heyman, and he's had appreciable effects within Raw, but it's all still within Raw's formula. It's a better version of Raw. I think WWE needs significantly more than a better version of Raw, in my opinion. So, yeah, I would like to see AEW handily defeat NXT, because other companies, the success have in the past influenced other companies to do things right. ECW in the mid-90s completely rewrote the narrative language of professional wrestling. WWF, in response, had edge to their product. Maybe if AEW flourishes with wrestling how it's meant to be, unscripted promos, expressive pro wrestling, agency, maybe WWE will finally realize, after 19 years of the scripted era, 17, 18, 19 years of the scripted era, maybe we should allow the performers to perform.
Let the wrestlers wrestle.
So that is honestly my big wish. Failure could enact meaningful change.
I mean, you're talking there about like the competition it's going to have, how it could affect the main roster of his flagship programs. But going up against NXT specifically, which is a far more critically lauded element of the brand, do you think that'll still carry?
Say all that again? Sorry, I was
Well,
miles
you're talking
away.
about the problems it's got with the main roster.
Yes.
But it's not going up against the main roster.
Yes, but NXT is really not too dissimilar to the main roster. You don't get... NXT's like WWE, it just happens to be mostly a very good version of it, particularly on takeovers. I'm not that dead inside. I recognize and love takeovers so much, but NXT's TV show is beholden to the same formula. You'll get a guy cut a promo in the middle of the ring, and then someone will interrupt it with suspiciously perfect timing. You'll get suspiciously slick, like, verbal exchanges, and then it will end at the same time every single week. You know, it's a very much a WWE show. So I do think, yes, over the course of 2 hours, it possibly will get exposed as a bit boring. I think people will get found out for pretending to watch it, as I'm convinced happens. So yes, I think NXT... I've lobbied for a long time for the NXT format to change, because I'm convinced that not many people watch it. And if you read the Wrestling Observer newsletter... Sorry, Murray, I'm just completely negating you.
It's all
here.
good.
Over the past 3 months of this calendar year, once per month, NXT has been defeated in the top 10 network rankings by crazy things. Like, literally crazy stuff. Like, Superstar Wives Table for 3.
Great job.
Table for 3 starring Shane Helms and the Hardy Boys. Just looking back on stuff.
Great job.
Yeah, it's... How many people are realistically watching Table for 3 and then think of the number watching NXT? And also... Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle retrospective look back at their King of the Ring 2001 match beat NXT 1 week. NXT ordinarily tops these charts, but what I'm saying is if these programs, it's so niche.
Yeah.
If they're topping charts, what do the charts themselves say?
Well, you kind of stumble on something else here because it's probably a wider discussion that needs to happen. The NXT is sort of critically lauded as some of the best wrestling you see all year. It's often in match of the year conversations. We sort of mourn when superstars leave there and go to the main roster because it's an end of what will probably go down as one of the best periods of their careers. But by the same token, a lot of people who think and say all this, myself included, will then hold their hand up and go, don't watch a whole lot of the weekly product if you even watch it at all. So do you think with the expansion to 2 hours and going on to television, they're just going to keep what they've got now and double it, or they're going to have to change the creative process?
I think they're going to, there's this talk about Vince getting involved and then these counter reports saying it won't be. I think what's going to happen is that, it's kind of hard to make these assertions because we don't know like what NXT's viewing numbers are. We got the chart and stuff, but we don't have numbers. The numbers are never released. They just aren't. I think Meltzer wrote a few weeks ago that most TV people and most people within wrestling specifically reckon that AEW will probably come in at about 500,000 viewers a week.
I think that's conservative as hell.
It might be conservative as hell, but that's what they reckon.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to know. Like I too would prefer to see AEW triumph in this because I think it'll force WWE to switch things up and it'll make a better product as a result. But as far as like the mainline NXT program goes, if it does fall behind and if it does lag in the ratings war, I think we're going to see Vince do what Vince does and bring in Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans and all these other kind of tired main roster people that he thinks are like these big stars and stuff to try and pop numbers. And you might even see the bloody Undertaker or someone show up. I don't think you're going to get NXT in its purest form. You might get it for the first few weeks, but if they start hitting rocks, I think he's going to panic and go full sports entertainment.
I don't want to get too bogged down in the NXT thing because we're hopefully going to talk about many wonderful things we hope happen in the rest of the year, maybe. But does this completely alter the format of NXT? How do you deal with call-ups when it's its own television brand? Because surely, if you've got a big star, the ratings aren't an issue. They can be outdone in the ratings by Table of Three. It doesn't matter. You're still paying your $9.99. But if you're running a television network and the company have decided, well, it's time to take the champion away, he's going to lose his belt, and we're going to put him on Raw. Surely the executives who are then putting loads and loads of money into this go, sorry, no, that's actually the biggest star on one of our weekly shows. You can't just take him away. Is this going to be an issue for them?
I've got no idea how this is going to work. They've lost a big shortcut trope that they've had to bank on. That's never really been successful, let's be honest, in the last couple of years. I don't know how the it's not a promotion anymore. They're both main roster shows.
Yeah.
So realistically, what they should do is exercise a bit of discipline, have 3 distinct static rosters for 3 or 4 months at a time, and then through some narrative convention, do some like shake up.
Yeah.
Because a cyclical roster is how the best episodic TV shows have gone in the past. Like, look at Raw and Nitro. Like, in their respective heydays, like, they thrived on the idea of, like, talent jumping ship. And if you can emulate that thrill without it being, like, wacky wild card bollocks, then I think that's maybe the way to go. Because, like, I think a lot of wrestling fans, if it's done with a lot of discipline, if someone you would never expect to rock up in NXT rocked up in month 4, you'd probably treat that as a big deal, even if you might have seen him the night before. It's just the illusion of freshness maybe is the way to go forward. I'm not sure. But, inconsistent with this podcast, I would like to see it.
Can you see them doing some kind of invasion angle initially? Because you've got to imagine the sort of numbers you watch the network compared to what they'll be hoping they do on TV is fractional. The hardcore NXT audience is going to be a lot smaller than what they hope ends up on TV. So by that extension, there's a huge audience out there who probably have no awareness of the brand in any capacity. Now, given that it's not called WWE NXT, it's just called NXT, it's very plausible to present it as an entirely separate company, especially if there's casual fans out there who are hearing that there is a new company starting a Wednesday night show. Could see them conceivably starting up some kind of like adversary angle?
I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential for that, absolutely. But I don't necessarily think it's going to make any kind of difference really whatsoever. He can bring all these guys up and down and in little forces and so forth. And, like the Nexus, obviously the debut was such a great angle from back in the day, but history shows they're just going to balls this thing up. None of that would stop them, of course. But I wouldn't be too enthusiastic about it.
I'd personally be up for watching Bobby Fish strangle Corey Graves with the tie, but I mean, that might be. Anyway, we'll move on. Andy, anything in particular you want to see from WWE in 2019?
Yeah, the last 3 months have taught me quite a lot about what WWE do in the ring on the main roster, and I really think that they should be changing their approach. With AEW coming along, a lot of people, a common take is to say, well, they need to start putting on better matches and all this stuff. They need to let Ricochet and all these other guys, these Cesaros, the 5-star wrestlers, go out and have 5-star matches. I think that's kind of bollocks to an extent. I think that if a company's going to thrive doing that kind of match, that Meltzer baiting whatever you want to call it, right? It's AEW. They're going to be doing that. What I think I would like to see WWE become is sort of an alternative to the alternative.
The best version of itself.
Yes, precisely. They should be, which is the opposite of what they do with most of the roster members, funnily enough. What they need to do, they don't need to be trying to make Citizen Kane or last year's critically acclaimed film, Roma, or whatever, right?
Correct, yeah.
They shouldn't be trying to craft those things because they're not particularly good at it. They shouldn't be going for Omega versus Okada 70-minute matches because they're not going to be as effective at doing that as AEW. What they should do is be making Avengers movies and Fast and Furious films, the action movie stunt show spectacles that only this company can do. And I'm talking about the Graveyard Dogs tag team match. Beautiful,
could only happen in WWE.
Stupid bollocks, but so much fun. I had more fun watching that than a lot of your 4.5, 4 3/4 New Japan matches this year. Loved it. Great fun. Lashley versus Strowman, another one. Stunt show. Give me George Mizanin doing this. It's fun. It's explosive. Goldberg squashes. Guys going through the stage. This is the kind of stuff that needs to happen to. You've got your Daniel Bryan, right? Have Daniel Bryan on your pay-per-view working slick, technical, incredible 4.5, whatever match. That's one match on the card. I don't think they should be embracing, the Ricochet,
They can't.
They
don't know how to do it.
takeover approach. I think that they need to go back to their roots.
Yes, there's no appetite in that company to allow Ricochet to wrestle a full brunt Ricochet match. Like Vince McMahon's got this, in my opinion, idea of the audience as kind of idiots who can't follow a really convoluted story. So you see a lot of very basic limb work. You see a lot of thrilling but ultimately hollow near falls at the end of the match. I just don't think he believes his audience capable of understanding a really complex and intricate pro wrestling match. So I'm completely on board with what you're saying. And I think Bray Wyatt best symbolizes
I agree with
that idealized version of WWE. And one thing I will say is that Bray Wyatt is kind of this new reinvention so genius that he's rendered an act like the Dark Order, really old hat. It was kind of old hat to begin with.
Absolutely.
Great tag team, a great tag team, but this gimmick's not really worked out. So yeah, WWE should, I'm not going to get a red hat on, but they should make WWE great again in their own idiosyncratic spirit. I'm absolutely not going to wear a red hat.
There is one.
Weirdly, you are wearing one.
Everyone in the comments section is going to say, well, your hair's crap anyway, Hitler, so you should wear a hat.
Do feel free to Photoshop that and tweet it to us. What would it take to inspire this kind of change?
Say it's horrible.
Do you think?
NXT losing a ratings war, I think. WWE needs a sharp haymaker to the jaw. They need to get rocked because they haven't been rocked in 20 years, if longer. The ratings war is the key thing for me because not necessarily because it'll force them to change NXT or whatever. I think the reverberations of that will be felt all the way around the company. Vince McMahon is a ridiculously proud man. If he sees something like that, even though they're guaranteed $50 million, which
he's
is a
proud
ridiculous.
Of poop.
Yeah,
that's the things he's proud of.
But even if they're getting $50 million for this thing and they don't theoretically need to change anything because money and George Barrios will be very happy and all this stuff. Yeah, it's an ego thing. It's like if he sees himself getting beaten by this rinky-dink mom and pop wrestling organization, which is definitely what he sees it as, then that's it. They've got to take a hit or a hit to their balance sheet, which certainly isn't going to happen with Saudi money and this TV deal kicking in and all this other stuff. But that's for me.
Taking this down a scale from global wrestling landscape shifts, I see you've both written down some names of wrestlers. Let's throw it to you first because you've written in very nice font, I might add. Very nice handwriting.
Thank you.
I also like Sami Zayn.
I love Sami Zayn.
He's great.
And again,
What is it you want to see, though?
Well, this is going back to what Murray was saying. People out there, and I see this on Squared Circle, see it in YouTube comments, I see it on Reddit, I see it on Twitter, I see it everywhere, to the point where we've kind of got a bit of a snarky in-joke about it in the office. People saying push Cesaro.
Push.
And it's no, man. They don't push guys who aren't polished, natural talkers. And Cesaro's a phenomenal guy. He's absolutely phenomenal. That's why people want to see him pushed. I just think it's so unrealistic. You saw his inset promo before the King of the Ring. It was as basic as it gets. He can't really do WWE style sports entertainment. He just can't in a top featured role. Sami Bloody Zayn can. Sami Zayn's promo on the post WrestleMania Raw was so goddamn good that I got worked by it. More than happy to admit that I got worked by it, because midway through, I was starting to think, you bloody idiot. It's obviously not the fans' fault that that company's in such a toxic state. It's obviously Vince McMahon. And, all right, okay, you've got us. You've absolutely boomed me. He's so good. He's so good. What I'm getting at is that Sami Zayn is so capable of operating within the context of sports entertainment. He's so good on the mic. I can scarcely believe how good he is, considering how often, well, for how many years he put himself under a mask. He's great at segments. He's got a keen grasp of his character, whichever character he plays. He could modify his shtick and direct it towards anyone and kind of create a program that he can sort of believe in. And he's absolute fire in the ring. So I'd love to see them do something of real significance with Sami Zayn, not just because he's a great wrestler, but because he's actually capable of delivering what they want, if only they could see it.
Well, you wrote the article. I did the video for the Cesaro thing, and the points you made in that were that, like, yes, you can rate everything about Cesaro. You could write a very long list of all the things he's really good at, but WWE has a very short list of what they want their top guys to do, and sadly doesn't tick any of those boxes. You can't engage in these tedious 20-minute back-and-forth scripted promos at the start of shows, and if you can't open the show for WWE, they're never going to let you close it by the same token. Whereas coming out of WrestleMania, that Sami Zayn promo felt like one of the most important things of the entire weekend, because we weren't sure whether it was him sort of acting out this character he was basing on Vince, or whether Vince was basically puppeting his snark towards the fans through. It felt really interesting, but then they really let it sizzle out so
Next
quickly.
week,
Yeah. So I just, what would you see them do with him? Like,
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's pie in the sky stuff, which is why I'm default cynical, hence the opening of this podcast, because we've seen them just botch it or just neglect it or whatever. But yeah, if this is a total fan cast of a podcast, I just would love to see it. He's so talented, but he's pale and he's like not a big muscle
Any
monster.
sports causes that they don't agree with.
And it's the same old default kind of like, oh, this is what they do, which obviously doesn't suit the tone or the theme of a podcast like this. But if you want to walk away from these things with any kind of credibility or, you know, unbroken heart, then this is kind of what you have to go. But yeah, hopefully if AEW gets guys over that don't fit a WWE mold, maybe you could see WWE try and do something to just get inspiration from it.
Andy, who's filling that void in your particular heart at the minute?
I've got two ideas. The first one kind of ties back to my turn WWE's drop my pen.
That's gone forever.
That's my prop gone. Turn WWE's product into the greatest wrestling action movie of all time. The man you put at the center of that, for me, quite obviously, is Braun Strowman. I think that if they make him heel in this Seth Rollins program, I think they're stupid. They seem to be intent on heating the guy up as a guy to get defeated. He's a challenger. He's fought Brock and all these other guys, and he always gets knocked back down. And it takes him months to come back up, and then invariably the same thing happens. I think this guy has ridiculous top babyface potential. He's got kind of a goofy voice, but I think that kind of works for the promos he cuts. Right? You're going to get these hands and all this stuff, and he's.
You're thinking about Wilborn as well, though.
Yes. He's the best. He's the best big man in the business in terms. Well, the second best big man in the business. In terms of
Lance Archer, mate.
In terms of wrestling as a big man.
Yeah.
Lance Archer is a better wrestler than Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is a better big man for me than Lance Archer.
Neither of them the best big man we know. So.
Well, that's exactly right. That's something unique in WWE. You know, Lance Archer is a three-dimensional, fully formed, brilliant professional wrestler in New Japan. But this is the kind of guy that Vince McMahon used to base all of his stuff around. And I think that his charisma, people like getting behind him and so forth. He does these crazy stunts that no one else can really replicate. You know, he does the odd stupid thing like wrecking cars for no reason.
Flipping an ambulance.
Because Vince McMahon. But I really think that if they stick with him as a face, if they strap him up, they could really go places with
It's
that.
kind of bizarre, really, because I remember going into WrestleMania before last, he was pretty much the top, inadvertently the top babyface in the company. Everybody sort of wanted to see him face Brock, and then we knew we were getting Roman again. It was like, well, at least they'll do something fun with him. At least he's kind of got, we haven't got to watch him. We haven't got to watch him get defeated in the main event. We haven't got to do another Brock match. He'd do something fun, and then it was like, it's going to be a tag team match, and then it was ended up being Nicholas. And it's just from there, he's never really quite recovered. I do remember hearing reports at the time that his knees physically can't take the style he likes to wrestle.
And then they make him run around the ring every single
very
day.
athletic, yeah.
So they weren't really willing to strap a rocket to him or strap a big title to him because they weren't sure the long-term sustainability of him as
Do
performer.
it bloody now then.
That's the solution to me. You got to do it now because the guy's 36, 37 as well. You know, like if his body's starting to depreciate, you need to make money off this guy while you can.
How would they do it? Because as you say, they clearly see Rollins as the top babyface in the company.
Yeah.
Now you can't have two of those. That's
I mean it's a really tough one because I think they've booked themselves into a corner with this program. I think them being tag team champions is very interesting. Concerns regarding the Bald brothers losing the belts aside. It's a tough scenario because it's WWE, so they're probably going to turn one of them heel, and it's probably going to be Braun.
Well, by all accounts, we've heard that's going to be the main event of Clash of Champions.
Yeah,
and you just can't see them.
I don't think that's particularly
Seth.
interesting. The only way I could see them doing that is if perhaps they risk incurring the wrath of everyone in the universe if they do this. But as a get out, if that has a screwy finish, if AJ gets involved or something, whatever, and then somehow you could transition on to having a multi-person title match in which Braun pins someone else rather than Seth, and then you could have a sporting rematch or whatever. But with the current,
they hate those though. They don't ever think the audience has got enough credit to just want to enjoy it for its own sake.
They do. It's a tough one. They've booked themselves into a corner. But Paul Heyman's Raw has been very good lately, so maybe they can kind of get out of that.
I would like that.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
crossed.
how much I wanted that until you started saying it either.
The other thing I wanted to mention was the King of the Ring tournament. And this is just the most ridiculous piece of push Cesaro booking I've ever come up with in my head. But I think ideally the whole tournament should be used not to have these wonderful 25-minute matches, although that'd be cool and all. Like, that's just not what WWE is. But, like, if they can use this thing to set up loads of little storylines coming out of it for people who went out in the first round, for all this stuff. If you look at the SmackDown side of the bracket, you've got, like, Ali versus Buddy Murphy. That's a 205 Live rivalry replies. You've got Elias and Owens. Obviously, that continued the Shane McMahon storyline. Everything has a little story in it. Andrade versus Apollo wraps up their thing. But the thing I would like to see them do is I would like Andrade to win this tournament, not because I want him to have like these 5-star matches and all this stuff, but I think with Selena Vega, he's a really great sports entertainment ad. He's learning English as well, all this stuff. But I think they could do something really cool to finally blow off properly the Rey Mysterio feud. At the end of this, Spanish word for king is Rey. Easy little way to tie it together. Have this guy strap him with the stupid...
Sorry, I'm just going to stop you there. I'm really impressed by this.
Yeah,
I did not know the Spanish word for Copa del Rey. Of course it is.
Yeah, there you go, brother.
That's brilliant.
So you do this, you do all this stuff. You have Andrade ham it up with the stupid king gimmick for a little bit, but as a total bell end. You have Rey kind of, maybe get G'd up by his son, Dominic. You go, come on, Dad, you can do this. You said you were going to retire. And then
He's inspirational.
Yeah. Yes. And then you just get shellacked in the final match, and Andrade, boom, is a star.
I've got to say, I must correct you though. You can't do your most ever, and I quote, my most push Cesaro piece of booking for a tournament that includes Cesaro and Advocate for Andrade.
He's gone, mate.
Not anymore.
Cesaro's gone,
He's
baby.
included in the tournament though. Yeah, can you see Andrade winning it?
No, I can see
No,
Baron
I
Corbin
can't
winning
see
it.
either. It's Baron Corbin.
The thing is, like, they love Baron Corbin
King
because
Corbin.
he's tall.
And he's sexy.
Right, they love tall, but they also love wordplay and marketing quite a bit.
King Corbin.
King Corbin.
Sounds like King Cobra.
Or Ray Ray.
Yeah.
He'll
Ray
never
Ray.
do Ray Ray.
Ray Al Ray.
He'll never do Ray Ray in his life.
Right, this is a spiral out of control.
Finally one, yeah. Asuka, you've got.
I've got failure. I also like Sami Zayn and Asuka. God damn it, just give me Asuka versus Shayna Baszler on NXT. Because the second...
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Have you got that?
I've got Shayna Baszler doing stuff.
So, yeah, Asuka versus Shayna Baszler is a meeting between the two dominant Goldberg gods of NXT. And I'm pitching this because I'm fickle. Wrestling fans are fickle. Short memories, very quick to forgive. Otherwise, why would we have watched WWE for the last however many years? On that basis, the second Asuka is enclosed once more by yellow ropes. It's oh my god, it's her again.
She's back.
She's obviously as good as she always was. So yeah, I would love to see Shayna Baszler be one last contender on TV when it's live, and just say,
I'm off.
well,
See you later.
something to the effect of, like, I've beaten everyone. What is the even point of doing this? And then maybe they could tease Jessamine Duke, and the one whose name I can't pronounce.
Marina Shafir.
There you go.
Yeah,
there
baby.
you go.
You're blind to hear.
Hey, I'm great, me.
You're making me feel like crap now. So maybe they could tease them two coming in, a bit of nepotism, and I think fans don't think they're experienced enough because they're not to do something. That would get a chorus of droning boos, like, no, you can't defend it against them. And then Asuka comes out, destroys the pair of them in full Asuka dominant fashion, like brilliantly, definitively, and it's going to take 30 seconds for both of them. That way, she'll instantly get solidified as, oh my God, she used to be great and now she's great again. Stare down, Shayna Baszler. That sets up your next takeover match at War Games.
What is it? You've got Shayna Baszler written down. What is it you actually want for her?
I mean, we can absolutely do the wonderful scenario that Michael has just planned out because it's the best way to end Shayna's run. But I want the end of Shayna's NXT run. I love the title reign. I think it's brilliant. I'm not one of it's pretty divisive. A lot of people don't like it because she just beats everybody. Well, that's how you get someone over, Bellend. I think that.
Who doesn't like Shayna Baszler's title reign?
There's a lot of people.
Everyone online.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say the Mia Yim match was particularly brilliant, but like the run as a whole has been excellent, hasn't it?
People don't like it.
Online, the reception is 50-50 split, negative, positive. But either way, I think she needs to be on the main roster. I think she needed to be on the main roster a while ago. I think that the eventual Ronda Rousey match is far too easy and should definitely happen. You're leaving money on the table. She would fit in perfectly with these. You look at Rousey matches, the Charlotte Becky matches, the Sasha Ronda match. These are bruising, hard-hitting, often sloppy, but in a good way, in that they reflect almost a real fight. And
It's proper struggle.
Yes, they convey a sense of struggle that is so often missing from WWE's clean, clinical, overly safe ring style. And I think that Shayna Baszler would fit that group of wrestlers in that style like an absolute T and immediately be at worst, the second or third best wrestler on that roster.
I think it's interesting you brought up the Sasha Ronda match because I remember as you talk about the sloppiness in that, it didn't look like any of these spots were pre-planned or being worked in any way. It looked like two people.
Looked like a
genuinely
goddamn fight.
But when you look at like the state of the roster, I know Sasha's just come back, but how far away that company feels from being able to put on a match like that anytime soon. It's just I can't see Sasha doing that with anybody else on the roster currently. Maybe Sasha Asuka, maybe could be that good, but Baszler surely the natural way to get that division back up, right?
Yeah, you think so?
What's stopping them? What's kept them from doing it for this long? Is it lack of faith in what else NXT currently has?
Well, it might be that, but let's be realistic. Like Shayna Baszler, if you look at her appearance and her age, none of this matters to me whatsoever because she looks like a total badass.
Yeah.
But you know where I'm going with
It's
this.
Vince. Yeah. Vince. Yeah.
Doesn't see her as a...
Well, I don't know this from inside information, but it's just a very clear inference just gleaned through just years of precedent of how they've treated the women.
Lacey Evans is the reason they haven't done it yet.
Well, because you can only have one hard-hitting, badass caller in a year, so how could you possibly have Shayna Baszler occupying the same space?
The reasons they elevated Lacey.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably the more pertinent point. You can just see Vince looking at the pair of them, not asking to see a single match and going, yep, I know exactly which one I want there.
Yeah, he's still got his old...
Pamphlet has described this as phenomena as 8x10s. Like, hasn't got enough time to watch the product, so you guys, right, give some 8x10s.
Yeah. Just as a slight bit of just like frivolity here before I wrap up, how different do you think the landscape would have been in the women's division if they'd called Shayna up instead of Lacey Evans?
It would have been good.
Yeah. Yeah, Becky would have had some good matches.
It would have been good, and more to the point, it might not have cooled Becky off. She's getting back up there, but the irony is that this is how like disposable everything in the company is. Sasha Banks was freezing cold when Becky Lynch was hot.
Yeah.
And now
she's pretty much dragging her back up.
Yes, now Becky's cold and hot returning Sasha Banks is heating her back up. It's wild, it's disposable, but maybe if they just didn't indulge in their very, very niche experiments and fetishes that Vince has, maybe you wouldn't have to have one to elevate the other.
Any final little tiny little would-be nice things to have in WWE in 2019?
Unscripted promos.
Unscripted promos, a working search function on the network.
It works pretty well now, brother.
Nice
at the expense of everything else.
Yeah.
Nice pair of slippers for Vince or possibly an obituary. Anyway.
Maybe.
Anyway, we'll wrap that up.
That.
We'll wrap that up there. This has been things we would love to see WWE do in 2019.
Number one, fail.
How hopeful are you for any of this?
Not
very?
at all, no.
I don't even know why I'm asking you.
Don't bother.
No. Right, well, that's all we've got time for. Last one I'm ever doing with Sidgwick. Thank you very much, Andy, for joining us. Where they can get you on Twitter if they want
Andy
to.
H. Murray, the H stands for Hank.
And Andy Sidgwick?
I lost a follower yesterday. I got called an effing weirdo. Stop being so negative. So if you're into that kind of content, follow me at Sidgwick.
And get us all at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Acast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts
not
from.
weird,
For
just
more of this
sad.
frivolity.
It against me. Effing weirdo.
Bye.